Today is the last day of tour, and I do feel very mushy because I'm a mushy person. You know, I get mushy at the slightest thing sometimes, and this is no exception. You know, this is the end of a year with a group of people that I didn't know and don't necessarily have much in common with. And then it worked out so well. It's really weird. I mean, if somebody was saying that on the, Survivor program or something, I would think they were just lying. So it's kind of strange that it's been so community-like, that everybody sort of helps each other and pulls together, and that there aren't like horrible fights or like tantrums or it just seems like really utopian. I mean, in a weird way, it kind of lives up to what Björk said she was trying to create when she approached us about doing the tours, that she wanted to make a utopia, and I think pretty much she succeeded.
When I started to make Vespertine, I was working a lot on my laptop, so I was making very little beats, and for the first time enjoying very much the smallness of the speakers, and also the sense of virtual reality that the sound had. So. And at the time I was also downloading stuff from the internet and realizing how it made songs that were full of life and full of blood and kind of musical acoustic instruments and sounding very big, and they would make them sound like tiny, like they were vacuum packed immediately and suck all life out of them. And my first reaction was, of course, that this was cheap and terrible, but then I decided to try to write for the sound. So the sound wouldn't make my music bad, it would actually improve it. And so that was my beginning point. I think also the only reason why something like that would interest me is because I'm so emotional, and things always start on an emotional point of view for me, was that emotionally I was, instead of what I've been before, that everything that happens I magnify it 500 times and make it really large. I was somehow interested in the opposite, that if somebody, to make everything tiny and small, and to hide and to make things polite and unnoticeable. So I started collecting all noises that were tiny, and literally had a library. Was working with programmers, and we would just basically gather together a lot of sounds, and take the tiniest sound, like of like little things like this, and then we'd have to make them into a bass drum, and this would be the snare, and kind of these kind of things. And found out after a lot of that the sort of the key to what we were looking for was taking something very, 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 very tiny and magnifying it up too big, and it sort of gave you a sensation that you've been told a secret. The same way as if you see a picture of a cell in the body, magnified very big, you sort of, you get this feeling that you are being trusted for some inside information. And I guess this whole album is very much like this. I guess when I had done about 80% of the beats of the album, it sort of seems to be most of the time I can make all the skeleton and the songwriting, but then when I'm almost finished, I am curious to get the real virtuosos in the field, to add like some sort of acrobatic things, so it isn't, everything isn't so wooden, because obviously I had never made beats like this before, so they were a little wooden. So I contacted Matmos, and we had sort of been in touch, and I'd admired each other for a while. I was interested in someone who had been in this world for a long time. I guess Matmos had been doing these kind of beats and using these kind of noises for like 8 years.
We had done a little bit of musical collaborating because while she was working on the film, she sent us a recording of her just playing some Celeste, and it also had some demo versions of It's Not Up to You and a couple other tracks. And we started to work very intensively on songs responding to the Celeste, and we made these really freaked out Matmos 10-minute banjo jams out of them. I don't know what we were thinking. I mean, there's no way that Björk would have sung on them.
Yeah, I mean, they were very Matmos songs. I don't know if there's no way she could work on them, sing on them, but they're very Matmos songs. Like, we don't know how to make a song.
With verses and choruses.
Yeah, where there's the sort of traditional structure. We sort of make long, rambling...
Shaggy dog stories.
Symphonies.
So she liked those, but they didn't lead to a Matmos Björk sort of fusion of any kind, and that was fine. You know, fair enough. I think it showed a lot of trust on her part to start that going, but it turned out to not be the end of things because she came to see us in New York. We were playing at the Knitting Factory with the Rachels and asked if we'd be interested in working on some rhythms for Vespertine, and that was really the start of it. It was Hidden Place. We received that as an MP3 and started to work on that quite feverishly, and we thought, okay, you know, here's just one song, see what happens, and then it sort of snowballed where she'd say, okay, how about one more, and then there'd be another email like, I know I'm going too far, but how about one more? And, you know, just keep going and going. And we were fine with that, you know, because it was so outrageous, the songs we were getting from her.
Nobody sends us things with full orchestra otherwise.
Yeah, usually you get like 4 minutes of like repetitive, trendy, glitchy beats, and you're asked to turn and you be the orchestra, and you know, and here was someone who already had so much on her plate and still thought there was room for more, which I thought was really strange, but sure, okay.
And I sent them songs, and they would send them back to me with where the beats they had added things to it that made it a lot more alive, and sort of like a virtuoso sort of spark.
Well, there was no instruction, yeah. I mean, there wasn't a lot of
It
freedom.
was a little mysterious, even. I mean, you kind of want some instruction as to what to do, but there wasn't any.
I think there was more a sense of, I like what you do, go nuts, see what happens. And then conversations came up when she came to San Francisco and worked with us in our house. I remember she came and I was so excited and nervous because the only person I'd made music with really was Martin for about 8 years. And now all of a sudden there's Björk in the room and we're supposed to make music together and have a lot of excitement about it. And I start the computer going and it crashes immediately. Just dies. And I'm thinking, oh boy, we're really blowing it here. This is so unprofessional. This is so lame. So I take Björk into my study and say, oh, I have some very interesting books here. Have a look at this one. You said you like Georges Bataille, right? Have you ever seen this? And then run into the other room, call Jay, and beg him to blow off work, which, well, at this point,
I did.
Yeah, he did. He came over and fixed everything and basically saved the day. And
Well, I didn't save the. It took all day, pretty much.
yeah, didn't save that day, but saved the week. I think the hardest request she had was she wanted to get the sound of little buds on a branch of a pussy willow bursting open. And
It's just an idea.
And it's a brilliant idea, but yeah, we couldn't get anyone to take us seriously. We called all these nature conservancies and natural recording societies and said hi.
No one ever called us back.
Yeah. We're working for Björk and we need the sound of pussy willows bursting open. And they just couldn't, they couldn't do it. But we did have fun. We cracked a bunch of ice into our microphones and made rhythms out of ice. And that was sort of our learning process with how Björk thinks about music. And I found it very, baffling at first, being told to make the music more transparent, But eventually I realized that it's sort of a shorthand that points you towards something but doesn't spell it out for you,
Or primordial.
Yeah, primordial. Make music with no history. Make music that's triangular, which was really, it was a fun, respectful recipe rather than a sort of command to, make it in 3/4 time or just something programmatic. Instead, it felt very free and loose, and you could do what you like. And then we went to London and worked on the album, and it was right around then that our whole lives sort of
Fell apart.
went all Björk. Oh my God, Aurora is back. Yes.
Never gonna get a chance to make that sound. It's too bad.
I haven't done it on gravel.
If I mute it?
And that's the song I play the flute in, right?
Yeah.
So can't do it.
So you've got it set for the flute noise?
Yeah.
Okay, oh well. These are the bricks. Cocoon, nice. Yeah, it's a good set list. So possibly maybe got snuck in there, huh? Very long shore.
Well, what the hell?
I guess between me and Matmos, it took a while for us to find out what each other were made of and where our potential mutual ground would be. And there were several attempts until probably the most complete one yet, at least, was when I asked them if they would do the live tour with me, which was going to be quite a task. Basically, I had 27 songs I wanted to play, not only the Vespertine album, but also old songs, all my old songs. So basically, they would have to, in a way, rewrite most of the beats, and in a way you could say remix 27 songs. which they agreed to do, and came to New York to work on that. I think so far on Vespertine, I had done the beats with most of the beats with programmers, and they maybe came in the end and added some more like solos. It wasn't the ground beats. But when it came to the live situation, is maybe where they had an opportunity to take the songs on Vespertine all the way. So songs like, for example, Aurora and An Echo, a Stain, or they kind of would become like more Matmos. I think the character that made Vespertine was a lady in waiting who would play music in her living room. Quite elegant, slightly decadent lady who had studied musical instruments and had music box in her lap, and then she would sing on top of it. Yeah, for me it was very important that Vespertine was an inside album, not only internal but also inside the house, like domestic. So I wanted, and I got very excited by trying to invent all things like chamber music, but modern chamber music. I was very certain with Vespertine that I wanted a harp, and it sort of seemed to cover everything that I was interested in. I started writing the harp arrangements on my laptop and would rent a harp and play it in my room and get blisters. It was really fun, and be really bad, of course, but just to kind of get the feel of it. Then I would start to search for harp players, and I think I tried 3. And what seemed to be common in the harp world today is you either have harp players that are very academic and don't improvise. There's just no way. They will you just give them a score and they play what's on it. Or you get the extreme opposite, which are players that have denounced the whole discipline thing, and they just completely like free form and they're wild, which is incredible, but it means they can never play the same thing twice. So I guess I was always asking around, and then a friend of mine recommended Zeena to me. That she was definitely one that was very disciplined and very, you could get those sort of whole romantic element of the harp. And also she definitely had her own style and her own character. And she could take things you give to her and take it further and make it her own.
There is this world that's the harp world of, you know, harpists, and I've always been quite apart from that, you know, because I didn't really study formally. I studied mostly on my own, so I was never really a part, you know, I didn't have a lot of friends that were harpists or anything like that. So I don't think it's that normal to be that aggressive with the instrument. I know there are a few people here and there that do more radical things, but for me, I think it's a very beautiful melody instrument, but I also think it's an incredible percussive kind of instrument as well. Just this like kind of fantastic sound maker and not just a beautiful melody machine. So I love to approach it with putting both things into it.
I think it was spring 2000. I met her and we would try one song. I think we started actually with Palm Stroke. Then she would come, I think it was twice a week or something. It was very formal. And all the harp arrangement I'd done kind of on a synthesizer. They were very mechanical. She would learn them all and play them in again and add a little bit of her own to them. I think me and Zeena won most of the songs on Vespertine like this, except for Palm Stroke. That was definitely a more unique one that ended up becoming mine and Zeena's song, our little duet.
Well, there was kind of a version of Palm Stroke when I first started working with Bee, and it had a bass line and had, you know, chords to it and some kind of a melody. And she gave it to me and, you know, gave me a CDR of it and just said, well, do what you want with this. And so I started working on this idea of doing the bending of the strings, which I do a little bit at the beginning. So I had a whole section with these bend strings, bending of the strings, and then I made a whole introduction to it. And then we never really rehearsed it. I just kept on coming up with more and more ideas of parts for it, adding a middle section and developed this intro, which I thought would be the intro. We spent a few hours one day in the studio, like playing it like 20 times and recording it 20 times without a click track, you know, just playing it and then not really even listening back, just playing it and saying, okay, now what would be if we changed the key in this part, or what happens if we do something more dramatic in this part? You know, we just kept coming up with ideas about how to make it better based on the thing that we just done. We did a lot of takes, and that was the only time we ever really worked on it, which is actually recording it. And then it became Palm Stroke, and what I had done for the intro ended up being more important in the song, and all this crazy stuff that I do with the glissanas and stuff actually got toned down a bit because it was even more big, so kind of tone that down a bit.
When I approached Zeena first, it was probably because she was a harp player. So I was very fascinated by the instrument. And I guess maybe now, after I know her, it's really interesting for me to work with Zeena, the person. And she happens to play harp. Maybe it's turned around in that way. Yeah. Because it takes a while, obviously, to get to know people.
in a way, it's a very natural working process. It's just two people coming in with ideas, or when you work, the combination of working with someone that has a lot of ideas that you're kind of adding to their ideas, or the idea of coming into a situation where you're bringing ideas and they're bringing ideas and you're mixing up and creating a new thing. So both of these situations have been able to happen, and it's just fun. She's incredibly musical, incredibly responsive to ideas and open to ideas. So in a way, it's just a very inspiring kind of working situation to be in. And she's funny and very generous. So it doesn't really get much better than that. Yeah, you know what I mean?
When I started preparing the tour and decided the instrumentation of it, that it would be Matmos, Zeena, an orchestra and a choir, I realized that I already had orchestrations for the Vespertine album and some of the old songs, but not all of them. So I went on a search to find someone who could transfer orchestrations for an octet to an orchestra, somebody who would be up for traveling with us and directing the orchestra and the orchestra's rehearsals, which was going to be quite a challenge because of financial reasons. We would have to have different orchestras in every town. Yeah, we found Simon.
You approached it thinking, well, this is a pop artist. So when you're sitting there poring over a score or something, and she goes, well, you see, this one needs to sound like Benjamin Britten church music. You're like, what? What do you know about Benjamin Britten church music? Or we were rehearsing the choir once, and she went, that sounds a bit Gilbert and Sullivan. It was like, you're a pop artist from Iceland, you're not supposed to know these things. But that said, the fact that she does know those things means that when she says, I want this to sound like Benjamin Britten church music, you know what she wants, and therefore you are able to deliver it in the orchestration.
On Homogenic, I was very excited about strings being like string quartet or octet, where you can hear like very close to you, and very melodic and very narrative, like as narrative as my vocal lines. With Vespertine, it became very obvious that the strings, it shouldn't be few and each one are heard very well. It should be very, very many that are heard little. So the strings on Vespertine are more panoramic. They're more like the backdrop, in the distance. So to get that sort of sound, you need, instead of few violins playing very loud, you need very many playing very quietly.
I could tell you about the orchestra's worked with. It's been incredible for me, never with one program, if you see what I mean. So in this case, Björk's concert, have I worked with so many musicians, because it was spread across the tour. I've worked with 1,000 musicians around the world now, I would have thought. And as we've gone around the world with different orchestras, the personalities of those orchestras have coloured the music as well. You know, different places in the world play the same material differently. You know, we had the, in LA we had the glossiest, sexiest, sort of, you know, LA movie orchestra sound. In Tokyo we had the sort of like cherry blossom, clear, precise, clean sound that culture would provide with the Tokyo Philharmonic, and everything else in between.
The choir was maybe the last puzzle I managed to solve. For some reason, maybe it was just too close to me that I couldn't see it. And to try to get the celestial sound that I wanted for the CD, it became very clear very quickly that it had to be choirs. That it was kind of, you know, all the angels come in, or kind of this idea of this universal kind of almost kitsch kind of thing that for me, I don't know, maybe I just found it very funny too. And so I started just writing some choir stuff and melodies, and with other people too, and arrange stuff. And then in the end, ended up getting a very professional, very good choir from England. And we would do all the recordings with them, and then of course chop it all to pieces and in the mix and put it all around. And then it wasn't till, and I would solve all the riddles, all the other ones, and then a month before the tour started, this puzzle was not solved yet, which is of course ridiculous. And I had decided to go, because I've been working very, very, very hard and was very, very tired, to go on a holiday. And I just, I can't work anymore, I just have to go somewhere where I want to go. And it doesn't make any sense, but I just have to go. And I went to Greenland. And I guess it's sort of classic when you just follow your instinct and decide to not be logical for a change. And that's when things work out.
I saw an interview of Björk, then I realized that she's trying to express her music, and we help her expressing the music that she wants to give. We're like an instrument.
I managed to be on holiday for I think 2 days or maybe 3, and then I kind of course, you know, that's why I'm here. And I would put the advertisements for auditions in the window of the supermarkets and start to get those girls coming over. And as I was auditioning, I slowly realized what I was looking for, because there'd be certain girls that would come and it would be like, no way, you know. And so I guess I was looking for some sort of extension. I guess you could argue that it was some sort of extension of myself, like sort of the singer I was when I began singing.
She's very respectful. When she was in our country, she was so nice. Because we thought, oh, she's a star and she wanted this way and this way and this way. And she just said to us that do what you feeling to do. Do what pleases you, not pleases me. You have to sing these lines and do it in your way, because she wants us to be as natural as possible. Like her, she is totally natural.
This is the first time we ever worked together as a choir. Björk put us together. And some of the girls haven't even been on choirs before.
But everybody has some kind of, they have been singing. Some of them are recording artists.
Yeah, but they're most solo singers.
Yeah.
So I think we're doing a pretty good job.
My academic side is maybe more, because I went to music school, is maybe more strings and arrangements. And maybe my discipline also comes from I've been in studios most of my life. So something like editing together a lot of sounds and stuff is second nature to me. To get very sort of mosaic with noises and arrangement and disciplined and organized and all these things. But for me, I think the human voice has always stood for nature and freedom and something that's not disciplined or not academic. And so it made perfect sense afterwards, and I guess I almost didn't realize till some of the first shows, when it all started to fall into place, that they had to represent something like this.
I think my dream come true when I staying on the stage with Björk or something, because I always dream about touring. Yeah. People are very proud of us because we're representing the Greenland.
We didn't have time to expect anything because Björk came to Greenland in June, and we all have works, schools, education, whatever. And she came in June, and it was summer holidays, and after that we were supposed to go back to our works or schools or whatever. And suddenly we were picked, and suddenly we were to go, and you can never say no to this opportunity to go and see the world work and just sing, That's like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
They were very brave to begin with, to know with a month's notice that a lot of them had never left even their villages, that they were going for 5 months on tour and they'd never maybe sung before. So it was, it was a tough beginning for them. But they dealt with it very gracefully.
it was like a fairy tale the first 1.5 months. Then you realize that, okay, this is life. This is my job, and I have to do it good. Yeah, I really appreciate being here, and I'm still really like, oh, this is so amazing, and everything is so amazing, and the new cities everywhere, new town, new everything new. I'm settled that it is my work, but also it is like fairy tale. Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for watching that.